Hi students, in this video I'm going to be talking about World War One, the origins of World War One, and kind of introducing this topic. World War One is a huge conflict which is the culmination of a lot of the trends that we've looked at in the 19th century: nationalism, colonialism, industrialization, and also the ideas of the Enlightenment. And it also sets the stage for the important trends in the early 20th century. The rise of Nazism, the rise of Marxism, and the rise of American global power. And so in this video, I'm going to first set out the state of each of the different major European powers on the advent of the war. First of all, we're going to talk about Germany. This is very much where we picking up where we left off with European nationalism. Germany is extremely powerful heading into the 20th century. It has a very powerful army, has a very powerful industrialized economy, but Germany is surrounded. And all the other European powers fear Germany. Germany doesn't have any colonies, so it doesn't have any sources of raw materials to feed its industrial economy. So Germany is powerful but surrounded. Russia's kind of the interesting new wild card that's becoming more and more powerful, more and more involved in the affairs of the world and in the affairs of Europe with each decade. And so with Russia, we see expansion. We see expansion into the south, into the area of the Caucasus, and we see its expansion of its influence into Europe. We see its expansion of its influence into Asia and in the East. So the Russians, as we saw since the time of Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, are presenting themselves as the champions of Slavic peoples in Eastern Europe and the champions of Orthodox Christianity. And so they have this goal of restoring Constantinople to Christian hands, of expanding Russian control across Eastern Europe and south into the Black Sea. So we see them more and more involved in Eastern Europe, and we see them attempting to break into the Black Sea and an emerging rivalry against the Ottoman Turks. We see them expanding their control into the Caucasus and into Iran. And this provides them with the oil that's necessary to feed the rapid industrialization of Russia that's taking place, that's going to enable it to produce a war machine that's an economy that can support its large war machine. We also see the expansion of Russia to the east and Russian territory reaching as far as the Pacific coast and growing Russian engagement and rivalry with China and with Japan. So Russia is expanding in all these different directions. It's obviously the rising power on the scene, and yet it has significant weaknesses. Its economy is only newly industrialized and it's very fragile. Its army is also only newly industrialized and is very fragile. The Russians fight a war against the Japanese and are comprehensively defeated in the years leading up to World War I. And at the same time, the Russian state is fragile. It's still in the midst of a world and a country that's becoming more and more modern. It's still a very old-fashioned way of running a country with an absolutist czar. And that's a situation that's fragile, that has a lot of social and political tension built into it. So Russia is a powerful wild card, but it has a lot of weaknesses built into it as well. France has shown in the Franco-Prussian War that it's weaker than Germany, that it's threatened by Germany. And the French have decided that their best interest, their best approach is going to be to pour wealth into Russia, is to pour foreign aid into Russia in order to speed up the industrialization of Russia, in order that they have an ally on the German eastern border. And so that if they're ever threatened by the German Empire again, they can turn to Russia and that Germany will be attacked from both sides. Germany sees this and makes an alliance with the Austrians in order to kind of get a counterweight against the French and Russian alliance. Britain allies itself with France and Russia, partly because their supremacy at sea, a small army but a powerful navy, but their supremacy at sea is being challenged by Germany. And so Britain joins this alliance for mutual defense between France, Russia, and Britain called the Triple Entente, E-N-T-E-N-T-E, against the Germans and the power of Germany. The last European power is the Austrian Empire, the old Holy Roman Empire, which is now militarily extremely weak, is fractured through nationalism, but is able to take advantage of the even weaker Ottoman Empire to begin expanding into the Balkans and into Southeast Europe. And this is where the events that will kickstart World War I take place. All the territories in Eastern Europe that previously were part of the Ottoman Empire are now taking on a lot of nationalist ideas and want to have each ethnicity to have its own nation. And the Austrian Empire stands as a barrier to that because it's a multi-ethnic empire. And one of the nations, one of the nationalities that feels most threatened by the Austrians are the Serbians. And so a group of Serbian terrorists assassinate the heir to the Austrian throne in Sarajevo in 1914. They assassinate the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And we're told it's actually a very moving story that the Archduke's children forgave some of the assassins when they were brought to justice. But no one else in Europe, it seems, is in the mood for forgiving. And we find this alliance system quickly spins into effect and turns this conflict in the Balkans, this small conflict in the Balkans between Austria and Serbia, into a giant world war with more casualties in a war than have ever been seen before. And this is a product of nationalism, as I mentioned last week. The more you group people by their ethnicities, the bigger the nations become. When they go to war, the wars become more destructive. And so Austria demands that Serbia extradite those who they suspect of carrying out this assassination. Serbia refuses. They see this as an attack on their sovereignty. And so Austria goes to war against Serbia. Then Russia, because of its image of protecting the Slavs, because of its interest in expanding into Southeast Europe, declares war on Austria. Germany declares war on Russia because Germany has this alliance with Austria. So Germany declares war on Russia to protect Austria. The German declaration of war against the Russians, of course, brings the French into the war, who have an alliance with the Russians. And now you have all of Europe that's suddenly been spun into this war about Eastern Europe. I'm going to talk a little bit about the opening campaigns of World War I, but I'm going to do that in the next video. So I'll see you then.